sat up there and lied on men. Thanks to these unqualified and freelanced investigators and researchers on TikTok and YouTube, we now know the truth. If you go to this man's YouTube right now, he lays out all the facts. And check out these reputable websites. BX is reporting on it. This highly respected news website, lipstickalley.com, and this random Reddit poster have taken the time in between job searches to research this extensively and have discovered that this is a hoax. And these men are rightfully demanding an apology.
NBC releases an article interviewing the Brick Lady. Vindication? Not so fast. This story keeps changing, has more inconsistencies than a DNA test on a Maury show. And what is NBC Black? Let's get into it. Supporters of the Brick Lady are on TikTok doing a victory lap because there's been an article written by NBC. NBC Black. Now, I have no problem with Black publications. In fact, I'm very much a supporter of Black publications. But please, I implore you, people, to look a little deeper. The article in question, Brickgate revives an age-old argument between Black men and women. In an exclusive interview, the woman at the center of Brickgate says she has suffered daily panic attacks as a result of the familiar backlash hurled at Black women, where we heard something like that before, when they publicly denounce harm from Black men. Okay, so this article is written by Claretta Bellamy and Uwa Ide Osifo. Forgive my pronunciation. It goes on to say, in the social media post, a Black woman decried a group of Black men standing nearby on the street. Boom. That was what the issue was. She was talking negatively about the men, if you remember correctly, who stood around and did nothing, correct? Correct. Shouting tearfully, the woman, Rhoda Osmond, the woman recounts being attacked by a man who had recently fled. She refused to give the man her phone number. Remember that. This is the reason there has been a backlash from men. They want to write it off as that men are just hateful and they hate women. But this is the reason why this was held under question, this issue in particular. She says, yo, this man just hit me in my face with a brick, and all these Black men just watched. And the clip was reposted by The Shade Room, which has more than 1 million likes. While some Black women online called out the alleged bystanders' inaction and the decision not to intervene, some Black men in turn resurfaced Osmond's old social media posts, accusing her of a history of inflammatory behavior and untrustworthy character. With a lack of clarity on what went down, some women and men alike called Brickgate a hoax, comparing Osmond to Carly Russell, a Black woman who was charged with 2 misdemeanors in July after apologizing for faking her own kidnapping. Pin that right there. So they continue on in this article to pretty much document all the information we already know. And they do a one-up, which is what a lot of TikTokers are reacting to. They're saying, they use this quote from this young lady, this tweet, Black men pulling stuff from a Black woman's social media. They claim she didn't deserve protection when a Black man smashed her face with a brick for not giving him her number. Same thing white supremacists do after cops Black people to claim they deserve to die. See, this is the argument as it wants to be spun, right? This is the argument they want to spin. This is a conversation they want to have regardless of this situation, because this is a thesis that they've come up with that Black men don't protect and provide, right? A lot of these online talkers who have covered this story. But I want to bring this back to the point that men were making. The point that men were making is that, and I still maintain, most men familiar with violence and the injuries that come with somebody being struck by a brick in the face of all places, they would be unconscious. The skin would have broke. It would be a terrible scene. You would not, in fact, be able to get onto TikTok and start talking trash about the men around you who did nothing while you were hit in the face with a brick. So once again, she claimed, and most men responded to the fact that she claimed she was struck by a brick in the face for a man not giving him her phone number, right? Right. Just so we're clear on that, right? Because it gets clouded in all this other speculation about what black men are thinking or what men in general are thinking and why they might have hesitation to believe this story. A lot of things in this story don't add up. And the fact that they brought this article out, which I'm going to get to why this article, in fact, is questionable. If you're not willing to have an honest conversation about these things, we got to get into the psychology of why. Why do you need her to be telling the truth when a lot of things are in opposition to that? A lot of things are questionable here. And see, they go into, of course, a wonderful color purple analogy, I guess, concerning black men's behavior. When the film The Color Purple premiered in late 1985, it provoked uproar among black men and women concerning the depiction of black men's behavior. Why would they have an issue with black men being depicted in a certain light? Because it has real world consequences on those black men. And the same thing goes for this brick situation. If you're telling women that when they are approached by a man for their phone number, that pretty much that man in every situation potentially has a brick in his back pocket ready to smack you in the head with it. That's what it's building here. This is very similar to the street harassment issue that came up, which a lot of us had an issue with, because it was like, why are they not now criminalizing interactions between two people on open streets and trying to put a title on it that makes it more taboo or more of an issue? Yeah, of course, talking about The Color Purple is always going to be a trigger point, but that's funny because of this article that is allegedly from NBC, right? This publication that has a reputation to uphold, and you would think that they did their research and they dug into the facts and they got everything together on and confirmed all the sources. Okay, so they actually got some quotes from her. In an exclusive interview for the first time since the attack earlier this month, Osmond told NBC News that she suffered daily panic attacks and nightmares as a result of the online vitriol. Osmond said there's little she can do to convince people who still do not believe her story. First, they're like, where's the police report? You do not have a police report. I showed the police report. Note that. She showed a police report, but what was on the police report? If anybody's seen the police report had no information whatsoever. It literally had no description of the assailant. Then they're like, oh, it's a fake police report. Nobody said it was a fake police report. They said the initial card that she showed was not the full police report. Get it clear. This is the problem. We're offering what would be real investigative reporting if somebody was concerned enough to investigate this. But as you've seen, nobody really covered this story on a major scale. No national news source other than NBC Black has decided to cover this. Then they're like, show us the hospital records. You don't have hospital records. They didn't say you didn't have hospital records. You produced something that was still in question. Why was it in question? The hospital records that were produced also had some questionable people on there. And there was a letter that was written. But yeah, there was question about whether or not the doctor was even in town during the time that this was written. The doctor listed, right? You think we shouldn't have hesitation when we hear things like that? I show them hospital records. It's fake hospital records. The goalposts will never be met, she said. NBC News reviewed a police report. Now, this is NBC News. They're putting their title on it now, NBC's. You're going to have to stand on it because, back to the authors of this, Claretta Bellamy and Uwa Ide Osifo, are acting in NBC News's stead. So everything should be verified, correct? Okay, just so we know that. NBC News reviewed a police report filed on September 3rd and hospital records with results from a physical exam. Got it. Records indicate, now they're just saying what's on the record that they see. Records indicate her left ear had blood coming out of the canal and the left side of her face was swollen with bruising and tenderness. Osmond said police have identified a suspect for the assault and the investigation is ongoing. Okay, well, yeah, I thought they had located this suspect. I mean, there was a Instagram post that said he was located. I don't know how I'm going to support myself. I don't know how I'm going to graduate on time. I don't know how I'm going to, feel safe again. Right. It's important to feel safe. Absolutely. I can empathize with that. But there's so many questions here, and there's so many inconsistencies in this story that we just can't help but question how this thing came together, right? It's going to take months, maybe a year, maybe longer in my life to get it back together. Brickgate points to a familiar pattern of backlash hurled at Black women when they publicly denounce harm from Black men. Okay, now this is interesting because nobody's ever said this assailant is a Black man. If I'm not mistaken, I don't believe she referred to him as a Black man. She talked about the Black men that were around her that didn't do anything. But what if this assailant isn't a Black man? What if he's Latino? But somehow this has to be hinged on Black men, and that is very disturbing. And that's why we want to be thorough. That's why a lot of people that are like, why are you even interested in this? Is because there are implications further from this. If we got men out here hitting women with bricks, it puts a target on your back. It puts question marks by you as to what your intentions truly are when you interact with a young lady. Okay. Brickgate points to a familiar pattern of backlash hurled at Black women when they publicly denounce harm from Black men. And while it appears, and these all sound like fully indoctrinated talking points. When I say that, and I've said that in past videos, when I hear certain buzzwords and phrases, it sounds like some of these professional talkers online who talk about the topics of Black men and how they don't protect and provide. Let's see. And while it appears to be an isolated act of violence, the back and forth from detractors and supporters of Osmond represents long simmering tensions between Black women and men that now play out on social media. The source of that continued tension, experts say, is unaddressed anguish from both Black men who deal with rigid views of masculinity. Why? Why throw that shot in there? The Black men deal with rigid views of masculinity? So you can't be a nuanced person? But basically, they're trying to throw in some support from other communities, LGBTQ communities possibly, and Black women who feel neglected in light of demeaning stereotypes pinned to them. Okay. No problems with Sexy Red, though. Animosity fed by trauma. Some Black men are reluctant to acknowledge how their behavior may play a role in the trauma of Black women. Of course, Black men understand that there might be a role that Black men play in trauma of Black women. Of course. I mean, but to pin that on a whole community, to make them public enemy number one is wrong, and we'll continue to say it's wrong. This is a quote from Mark Anthony Neal, chair of the Department of African and African American Studies at Duke. Black women's search for accountability after violence has occurred often gets misconstrued as attacks on the character of Black men at large. Black men did this, Black men didn't protect us. And you'll see in some of the responses that they were making, there was women that were saying they were going to start carrying pew-pews, and any man that comes and asks for their number should know that they carry a pew-pew. That's what they were calling it online. You know what I mean? There's a generation of Black men who particularly, and now the Black men are on trial, who particularly in the post-Obama years have not had the kind of life and professional successes that they want, Neal said. And sometimes they see Black women promoted in certain kinds of ways. They're really in their feelings that as Black men, they're being left behind. This disaffected block of Black men may feel less convicted to stand up for Black women, Neal said. Osmond called the reactions to her case, however, displays of Black male fragility. Of course she did. I'm an independent, strong, educated, successful Black woman, she said. That makes a lot of them infuriated by my existence alone. Really? Really? A career student who does pranks on the side on TikTok, and we're infuriated by her existence. You hear this? This is what's bred all this. But everybody's like, oh, come on, tell me what you did to him. What did you do? Did you taunt him? She said. It's so ironic to me that they're like, I can't believe somebody would do something that violent for no reason. But then you're online being violent for no reason. This is, once again, I've spoken about this in the past. They want to make interaction online violence. They want to make words and put them into place for violent acts. This is rhetoric that exists that needs to be checked, because if it isn't, now you're being prosecuted for crimes that you didn't commit. People are calling my son's school saying they're going to come and R-word my son. She said, somebody sent me some soup and was like, choke and expire on this B. Okay, moving right along. To some black women, though, silence after a public call out can be disheartening, especially considering the disproportionate rates of domestic violence they face. 2020 data from National Coalition. Now that we're all off the subject now, we're on to data about the National Coalition against Domestic Violence. Shows that 45.1% of black women have experienced intimate partner violence. Nobody's doubting that. We believe that there is violence, domestic violence that happens. Most times it's bidirectional, women on men, men on women, right? And so the women abusing men never gets reported for some reason. I don't know. An estimated 51.3% of black women homicides are related to intimate partner violence. In cases where black women have been criticized for coming forward, they are treated less as victims and face scrutiny as if they are somehow at fault for the violence done against them. Shoniqua Roach, assistant professor of Black Studies and Gender Studies at Brandeis. Brian Ellison, another quote, okay, you see where I'm going here? Founder of the Black Man Project, an organization that provides group therapy for black male youth, said he believes misunderstanding between black men and women stems from unrelated, unresolved past trauma. I feel that's where a lot of things get lost in translation, Ellison said. We're trying to compare the pain that we both feel. In reality, we're both hurt. Okay, this is terrible. Some of the black women's frustrations are rooted in feeling rejected by black men, according to Diane Stewart, the Samuel Candler Dobbs Professor of Religion and African American Studies. Religion and African Americans? Okay, all right. Studies at Emory College of Arts and Sciences. She referred to general observation and data showing that black men are twice as likely as black women to marry someone outside their race. What does that have to do with anything? This is what I'm saying. This article is meandering. They have a whole interview of the person that allegedly, an exclusive interview of the person that allegedly was hit by a brick. Why are we not talking about that? We're talking about everything but that. And we're dressing it up. But there's a reason for that. I'll let you know why it is. Yeah. So black men are twice as likely to marry as black women to marry someone outside their race. What that has to do with anything, I have no clue. Racial stereotypes painting black women as aggressive and sexually promiscuous also run rampant in American culture, and even among black men themselves, she said. And as a result, black women have pushed against these stereotypes while simultaneously having to be leaders of their household, which in return can sometimes make black men feel inadequate. This is so much speculation. This is so weird for a national publication to be putting so much opinion in this piece. During the post-slavery era, black families were founded upon heteronormative patriarchal structures. We hear this coming out of the academy a lot of times, right, guys? Stewart said, many free black people went on a desperate search to find their family members who were separated during slavery, a time when black family unions confronted constant disruption. Marriage was used as a way to help strengthen these weakened black families. Yet Stewart said it was a landmark moment when black people began to internalize and emulate white Western understandings of patriarchy, which are reflected in the dynamics of black relationships today. Young black boys are socialized to believe they must be the bigger person and leaders, quotes, in quotes, the bigger person and leaders in their relationships with women, said Roderick L. Carey, assistant This is a list of quotes. This is a list of quotes. What I would think is questionable, if not outright bad journalism, right? Nothing to do with anything, not even really supporting the points that are being made, but we're breaking it down, yo. Around them come of age and may express self-empowerment. Black boys may feel all these may. You don't know this for a fact. Black boys may feel conflicted about their roles. You know, I'm supposed to protect you. I'm supposed to defend you. But also, I'm noticing that you have a lot of capacity to protect yourself and defend yourself, Carrie said. Okay, got through that. The path to healing. For Black men, social media acts as a forum where they can go to air their grievances about women, Richardson said. She cited online communities of men that create and share content grounded in misogyny. Social media, she added, has also generally been used as an instrument to spread hate and propaganda. Black women expressing their needs for protection are also looking for allyship and loyalty from Black men, which they don't often perceive. Is that a typo in NBC News? Is that a typo in this NBC News article that is supposed to be lauded as some type of proof? Okay. Stewart, who is currently teaching a class at Emory University on Black love, another person here, said there is a need for more feminist and womanist Black men. American society, especially Black men, do not listen to Black women. Well, I would say the reverse is true, because you all haven't listened to anything we've said when we've told you this story does not add up. Man, this is terrible. This is terrible, terrible, terrible. Please don't harm us. American society, especially Black men, do not listen to Black women when we say, please don't harm us, Stewart said. Please don't participate in patriarchy. Please don't be sexist. Oh my gosh. While online friction between Black men and women reflects some of the realities of what it means to be Black right now, it does not necessarily mean these tensions translate uniformly to real-world dynamics. Right. The internet is not necessarily a real place. What social media, and that's what we're trying to tell you, what social media allows you to do is to have a conversation with folks that you never have if they were sitting in front of you, Neil said. If we don't look at anti-Blackness as an attack on all Black bodies, regardless of gender and sexuality, these conversations as they play out in social media really aren't productive. Says you, who's been having conversations for decades and degrees, particular areas that haven't necessarily produced any results. You've gotten degrees in these subjects, and I don't see any type of change except for more separation between the genders. And that's really odd. That's really odd. Was that the goal all along? Who knows? Okay, Stewart said, Black men and women continue to grapple with their gender roles and how these roles relate to each other. In order to ease these tensions, the Black community needs to have a long conversation about gender identity, and our worth as persons, she said. No matter how we identify, that is long overdue. As people of African descent in this country, we are most anxious and conflicted and torn and have feelings of inadequacy, not about our race, but about our gender, Stewart said. I am 100% convinced of that, and it does not put us on divided sides of an issue. So there we have it. This article that is vindicating Roe and her claims of being struck in the face with a brick. Very sparingly even mentions the incident as it is. And like I said, I'm a man of my word. I said there would be a reason for that. We're going to go back to the authors of this, and we're going to see what's going on here. Okay, so we have Claretta Bellamy. Claretta Bellamy is a fellow for NBC News. Ua Ide Osifo is a news associate for NBC News. You say, what does that even mean? I'm going to tell you what that means. Let's look it up real quick. Okay, so it says one of the writers is a fellow for NBC News. What is an NBC News Fellow? A newsroom fellowship program. The Newsroom Fellowship Program. NBC Newsroom Fellowship Program is a postgraduate 6-month program designed to give participants real-world news experience. Aspiring journalists with diverse backgrounds will learn the ins and outs of both the TV and digital side of CNBC. I guess CNBC in this case, but NBC Black in the case of our writers here. Each fellow will spend 3 months on the TV side of the business, such as working on closing bell. Okay, this is just specific to them. But let me do a more general search. NBC Fellows. Yeah, okay. This is a fellowship. This is a fellowship. This is something for aspiring journalists. That would explain why this article is so, I don't know, unfulfilling. I'm not going to say it's amateurish, but, well, okay. Well, surely a fellow, somebody that's a fellow, or a Tim Russert fellow, that's a year paid position at NBC News. Let's look at what a Tim Russert fellowship consists of. This is from Yale. A Tim Russert Fellowship is a 1-year paid position in the NBC News, Washington, D.C. Bureau, where one fellow works in several areas, including Meet the Press and NBC News Political Unit. Okay, so let me go back. So you got to look a step deeper, man. All right, well, surely if a fellow is there by themselves, they have to be supervised by somebody. Well, this is a news associate. Let's see what a news associate is. NBC has a news associates program that's designed to identify talented, aspiring journalists. The program is a 1-year fast-track opportunity for people interested in the career of news production. Once again, so you got 2 aspiring journalists. You got 2 aspiring journalists on this, and this is supposed to be this bombshell report from NBC News. They're probably TikTok users at this point. It sounds like they're probably in their 20s. These are the serious journalists that have taken on this at a major publication to give vindication for this story. It's crazy. It's crazy. You're blowing smoke up people to have them believe. But let's get down to what I would think would be the most important questions. The most important questions about this, okay? No other major news network of note or news outlet of note has picked up this story. Like I said, I'm willing to believe that they heard the details and they're waiting to hear more information. But let's remember the accusation. A man hit me in the face with a brick because I did not give him my phone number. Right? Why are there no other videos of witnesses? Why are there no witnesses corroborating her telling of events? Why is the skin not broken on her face from being struck with a brick? Why is she conscious and able to animatedly post this TikTok video? What happened to the group of women that she was arguing with? What happened to the group of women that she was arguing with? Why does she keep switching her story from she got hit with a brick to she got hit with a rock? It's on one of the police reports that now she's saying she got hit with a rock. Now, these are mistakes that you can make. But once again, I said there are larger implications for why this is important to other people outside of this case. This is why people are talking about it. This is why it continues to be a trending topic. The implications of this are that anytime a black man asks a woman for her phone number, now she's got to worry that that black man has a brick in his pocket and she better give it up, or she better arm herself to cause further conflict between these two and potentially harm that man for simply doing something that we've done forever. So you give me an article written by a fellow and an associate. The police are just now picking up the case, and it happened on the 3rd. And they're only picking it up because of the work of people like Celebrity. Shout out to Daphne. She's out here doing the work, the investigative work that she can do. And nobody's really attached to an outcome on this. But something isn't adding up. And this article, this proof, this smoking gun, this vindication, it doesn't prove anything. She's doing things like interviewing the man that she was in a relationship with, her fiance, her most recent fiance, and her best friend. You know what's interesting about that? Is that those people who are being interviewed can attest to her character. And they seem to raise some alarms. They seem to reference the 2020 incident. that happened in a similar fashion where she was beat up by some men, but really she was actually beat up by some women. Could this activism cloaked as feminism, could she be covering up for the women that were in that car that she was arguing with, that we got witness testimony, that the only witness testimony that says she was arguing with a group of women? Could they have beat the brakes off her? Because that sounds way, way more plausible than this random phantom man, which she's named a name now. So anybody with that name out there, be careful, you're under investigation. But isn't that a more plausible scenario? She gets in fights with women. This is all alleged, right? This is all alleged. She gets in fights with women, turns around and blames it on men. And as I pointed out in a previous video, she references what happened in South Africa of a young lady not 2 weeks prior being hit in the face with a brick. And I showed you what that looks like. And yet we're still having this conversation. But what do I know? I'm just a go on YouTube, right? You let that chick in the first clip tell it. Anyway, let me know what you think about it in the comments. If you like this video, like, comment, subscribe. Hit the bell notification for all uploads. This is Faucette Media.